So back in 2023, I hopped on to this AI chatbot, which was not ChatGPT until I discovered it. However, I did put something in it way back then, and it got me inspired to talk about it today. So it was about soulmates. So I simply put that word in, and this is what it came back with. And then I'm going to give you a little bit more about that. So soulmates are believed to be two individuals who have deep and profound connection with each other, of course. They are often described as two souls who are destined to be together, sharing a strong bond and understanding. Soulmates are believed to have an innate sense of compatibility, completing each other's strengths and weaknesses. Fairy tale for some. While soulmate connections are commonly associated with romantic relationships, they can also be found in friendships, your soul friendships, your family, your soul family. If you don't necessarily get along with your family, like I didn't get along with all of mine, I found my soul family no matter where I moved to. And then you have soul relationships, and you can even have soul pets. So the idea of soulmates is rooted, of course, in the belief that a certain individual, person or pet, are meant to enter into our lives and help us grow and evolve on a deeper level. Finding a soulmate is often seen as a rare and extraordinary experience, as it involves a deep sense of this connection and understanding that transcends superficial aspects of a relationship. Many people believe that soulmates bring out the best in each other, supporting and inspiring personal growth. But it is important to note that the concept of soulmates, of course, is subjective, and values across different cultures and belief systems vary. So while some people believe in the existence of soulmates, others may have different perspectives on the nature of relationships and connections between two individuals. So my point of view about soulmates, which is why this was quite an inspiring subject to talk about today, as I'm coming to you with this Oracle Pulse podcast. And if you think that somebody would benefit from listening to this information, please share and like and subscribe, of course. So the soulmate, that when we talk about that as the mirror within us, this is what I'd like to talk about. So while many people see soulmates as another person externally to who they are, as completing them, my way of thinking points to a deeper truth. This is the 5D way of thinking. The real soulmate is the other side of our selves. So you have you that you know completely, and the you that you're always looking for until you meet them. So it's the masculine and the feminine, the logical and the spiritual, the light and the shadow, negative and the positive. All of these parts live inside of us, and they're usually and often unacknowledged. So when we meet someone outside of ourselves externally, they can awaken these hidden aspects of ourselves, but they are not the source, even though we think they are because they've come into our lives. They are simply the reflection. The real union happens when we recognize that the missing half that we've always been seeking for has always been within us. There's something missing. You get this wonderful relationship, but it's just not quite right. This is my soulmate, but this underlying current is not there. Because you need to meet the other part of yourself, that blueprint of wholeness. So believing that when we complete the circle and meet the other half of ourselves, the other part of who we are, like the snake with the head and the tail and that complete wholeness, this is what I'm talking about, meeting the other part of yourself. And this is the soul mate of what you've always been searching for in your life to become whole, so that your happiness doesn't get provided by anybody else but yourself. The needs and wants and voids doesn't get provided by anybody else but yourself. This is not to say that other people don't help with that, and their action, it's nice to have. But when you have that complete part of yourself, nothing else really matters. You believe that I believe, that once we meet our soulmate inside of ourselves, that the blueprint is complete. So this is when we can actually start to meet our true selves, our authentic self, or our soul. And we can see the blueprint then. So if we're highly spiritual and that's all we do in our lives, our soulmate is the grounded, logical side that we need to integrate. If we are deeply rational, our soulmate is the spiritual, intuitive essence waiting to be acknowledged. And if we are fragmented, the soulmate is the part that brings us back to wholeness. So rather than hunting for the other externally, it's a homecoming to ourselves. So when you have soul partnerships versus soulmate, relationships, friendships, family, of course, even pets, they are all soul partnerships. They walk alongside us. They teach us. They help us evolve. They may feel like soulmates because they hold up mirrors and they help us see parts of ourselves. But the ultimate soulmate is not external. It is that sacred meeting of self with self, the divine union of our inner masculine and feminine, our human and our soul. And as we transcend the reach for that external search, this way of thinking shifts the paradigm altogether. Instead of asking, when will I meet my soulmate? The question then becomes, when will I meet myself fully? And when that union happens inside, external relationships just no longer need to fill a void. They become expressions of the wholeness that we already are embodying. Love stops being out of completion and starts being about expansion. And then there's that sacred tension of that inner union. So when we talk about soulmates as the other side of ourselves, we begin to recognize that sacred tension that lives within us already is not always soft or romantic. Sometimes it feels like a pull or a friction or a push and pull between who we've been and who we're becoming. Your inner soulmate shows up in the tension between these two poles. The one who clings to that familiar story and the one who whispers there's more for you. The tension isn't a mistake. It's the meeting ground. It's where you learn to hold the paradox, where both sides of you are being invited to sit at the same table, to listen and to find harmony. Without the sacred tension, there is no depth to this union, because you must know yourself completely one way to know the other side of yourself. And then all the facets that you have. And of course, there are these cultural stories about soulmates, which often glorify that infatuation stage. The fireworks, the undeniable magnetism, the sense of destiny. But when we look inward, we realize our true soulmate doesn't arrive with fireworks. They arrive in whispers. They show up in the quiet moments when we finally see ourselves clearly. So integration is not glamorous. It asks us to sit with the parts of ourselves that we've ignored, that we've judged, or that we've pushed aside, to integrate our soulmate within us. You need to say things like, I welcome my anger because it teaches me power. I welcome my tenderness because it teaches me compassion. I welcome my logic because it gives me structure. I welcome my spirit because it gives me freedom. And so completing that blueprint of purpose, once we integrate the blueprint that I speak of, it doesn't just complete us. It unlocks our purpose. If you think of it like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle piece that's just fit together, until both sides of our being are joined, the picture of who we really are remains unfinished. So when this union happens, clarity just pours in. The path of service becomes undeniable. Creativity ignites in forms that we've never imagined. Relationships shift, not because others change, but because we show up whole. This is why so many people, after experiencing this inner union, feel called to a new level of leadership, artistry, healing, truth-telling. The completed blueprint is not just about love. It's about living at our fullest expression. And that myth of searching outside of ourselves, that external search for a soulmate that keeps many people stuck in longing. They measure every relationship against an invisible ideal. This search is often a projection of inner absence. When we disconnect from our own inner half of ourselves, every person that we meet becomes a candidate for completion instead of looking within. The shift comes when we realize that no one else can carry the weight of our unfinished blueprint. Partners can complement us, they support us, and they walk beside us, but they cannot build the bridge within. Only we can. And the paradox here, once we stop searching for a soulmate outside of ourselves, we often magnetize the relationships that reflect our wholeness. They no longer arrive to fill an empty space. They arrive to amplify what is already complete within us. And so the evolution of these soulmate consciousness, in the old paradigm of 3D, the soulmate was about destiny, two halves searching for each other across lifetimes. In the emerging paradigm that I've put forward, the soulmate is about remembrance. Two sides of one being in this lifetime to awaken the whole. This doesn't mean romance disappears. It means romance evolves. Love becomes less about you, complete me, like less about you, complete me story, and more about we expand together. Friendships become less about shared history and more about shared growth together onwards. Family ties become less about obligation and more about soul contracts that help us step into ourselves authentically by mirroring what we need. So here's the invitation. To meet your soulmate, you don't need to wait for fate or hope or the stars to align. The invitation is already here. Look at the parts of you that you've exiled. Listen to the voices within you that you've silenced. Dare to embrace the contradictions. Because when you finally embrace the other side of yourself, you discover the one that you've been searching for all along. And from that union, every relationship in your life changes shape. You no longer seek someone to complete you. You invite others to meet you in your completion. Let me say that again. You no longer seek someone to complete you. You invite others to meet you in your completion. And thank you very much for listening to this Oracle post. Please share to someone who might need this, or just simply subscribe and like. I thank you for listening.